Okay. So good evening. Hello. Namaskar. We are all delighted to have you join us for this second day of the 3-day dance festival um, called Chakshu. This is a little more than the dance film festival because in addition to the films which you have seen in this last 1 hour, we now have a panel of the filmmakers and dancers and choreographers joining us for this event. May I invite on to join us on the um, Zoom here now, Binish Mahmood and Sanjukta Wagh, Neha Bhatnagar, whose films you saw two of them. Red Stamp was Binish's and Sanjukta's film. It was the first one. Neha presented two films, Forest and Mother's Love. I would invite my fellow presenter, uh, the sort of dynamic Sangeeta Chatterjee to join us. She's held this entire festival together through very trying and difficult times. So I'll talk a little bit about that later. But she's joining us today because in the capacity of a dance filmmaker and dancer, you saw her quest, the lockdown diary of a dancer. We have with us Aditi Mangaldas, whose set of films you saw within from within. Welcome, Aditi. Thank you for joining us. And then from a city I love very much, Minneapolis, we have Darren Johnson and Ananya Chatterjee, whose film Dastak you saw as part of today's curation. And finally, the last very moving, very evocative film, Grapple, was by Santosh Nair, and Santosh is present here. Welcome, Santosh. I hope you have joined us. I saw you pop up a little bit in the middle of the thing, and I don't see you again. But I'm sure that's only something because I am doing wrong since I'm technologically so challenged. But oh, hello, Santosh. Thank you for joining us. Welcome, everybody. And I am particularly grateful to some of those who have joined us as attendees today. And I would like to just mention them. I was able to see briefly a glimpse into the Zoom room list of participants, and Leela Venkatraman, Manjari Sinha, Dr. Utpal Banerjee, Dr. Ileana Chituristi. They're all with us and very happy to welcome you. Do remember that you can put in your questions for the panelists in the question and answer box. We were trying to keep chat for comments, but there are many questions that come in the chat too. So I'm happy if you put in your question in chat, just make it animated, go the way you would like to, and put your question anywhere. I'm trying to keep my eyes on both sides. So this has been a hard event to put together, not because of the curational challenges, because that's always a pleasure to deal with curational challenges, but it's because of the dark and difficult times we are putting it together in. You have no idea how hard it has been on that count, but yet we have persisted. And one of the reasons is that, you know, when you see a ship sinking like like the Titanic, for instance, it's not because there is water around it that the ship sinks, but it sinks because water enters it. And what we are trying to do through the light of this creative candle that all of you have so generously shared with us is to sort of make sure that the darkness that seems to be surrounding us, particularly us who are in India right now, outside our homes, doesn't enter into homes, into hearts, and put us down. So, for being wonderful light bearers, thank you very much. For sharing generously, thank you very much. Now, every day in the curatorial lineup, we've tried to follow a sort of pattern. So, yesterday were dance films that are not seen very often. In fact, it was very interesting to pull them out and bring them on. It was sort of to serve as a appetizer to the fare that was going to follow over the next 2 days. Today's films were films made during the pandemic, except we started with a bit of a twist. And this twist is because our very first film, The Red Stamp, looks as if it was made during the pandemic, but it wasn't. So I'm going to ask both Vinesh and Sanjukta to talk a little bit about the film that they have made. Sometimes when you have two people, I often wonder who I should address the question to. So why don't we begin with either of you taking this first question, which is, isn't it odd to you that this film speaks so uh, articulately and volubly even today?
You take that one.
So between you, who would like to take this up?
I think I would really like Beanish to address this because we made this film about 11 years ago in 2010. This film has just been on my mind so much because it's everything that I'm going through right now. It was just a minute long. And Beanish is the director of the film. I was merely an actor, but Beanish had been my mate. We shared a space when I was studying contemporary dance at the Laban School in London. So I was fresh out of the school. And I think this very special friendship that we had and the experiences that we shared just led to the making of this film. And for me, it was play, and it was serendipity, and it was time and space. And I really think that something I really value in this film was it wouldn't have been made if it wasn't for the friendship. Because I am camera shy. I haven't done anything for 2 years. I have been under a blanket and I have been in my room and I've been in practice. But with Beanish behind the lens, I didn't feel like I was in front of a camera or being photographed. I was so comfortable playing. So it's like the space, the time, the person. And one more thing that it reminded me is how trapped we all were pre-COVID. You know, it's not like we were living in a free world then. And this has just been a reminder of how flawed the times were pre-COVID, you know, where we were trapped by other more invisible.
I think COVID has actually just amplified many other problems that we were having. In fact, I remember receiving an email from Vinesh when we were, discussing this film's inclusion, and you, I think, just listed some 8, 9 words, Vinesh, on what you felt the red stamp stood for. Why don't you share some of that, and so that we understand where you're coming from, where this film is coming from, and why this film continues to resonate at various levels today?
Well, absolutely. I mean, words like obligation, rules, restrictions, and if you go deeper into culture, duty, gender, there's a lot of things that bind us. There's a lot of things that restrict us. And I think 11 years ago, I was going through something internally, which I feel that we as women go through anyway, and also culturally from where we come from. You go through this angst within you when you're trying to find yourself and you're trying to understand who you want to be. And all of those things are exactly what came up in the last 1 year. It was the same thing. Suddenly when you can't go out, you can't meet people, you can't do the things that take your mind off of the things that are inside you. Who are you? What do you do? Who do you become? So I think it's very similar in that I was feeling trapped. And like Sanjukta said, the friendship is so great that what I was feeling, I think dance and movement really brings to life the feelings that you have inside you that you can't voice. And even though I'm not a dancer myself, Sanjukta was able to talk to me and show what I was feeling through her movement. And that is how Red Stamp came into being.
So it's very interesting that yesterday one of our attendees put a question up in the Q&A box, and he asked me, what are the principles of choreographing for the camera? And I remember it was towards the end of the show yesterday, and I just said, why don't you join us tomorrow? I think that you will get a lot more answers. So I think the two of you seem to be indicating that one of the principles that work dancing for the camera is that the camera person and the dancer need to have a very close relationship, right? What else would you add to it?
I think in the case of Red Stamp,
Mm-hmm.
one choreographer, because the editor is also the choreographer. And I actually contest the idea of a choreographer when it comes to my work, because I don't choreograph, I improvise. I went into a space and I didn't plan like I'm going to do this movement first and this movement second. We played, and then Beenish edited that, and I think she used a very specific technique that she was playing with, and we just played. So I think our film was born out of play, and I miss play, especially when I was watching Ananya's film and Aditi's film. I miss being one of many bodies in a space, and that play that happens, the spontaneous give and take and exchange of energies that happens, and then it happens at the editor's table, I'm sure, when things are planned. I think that's also a choreographer when it's.
Yes, it does. And I'm intrigued by the fact that you picked up on the word play, which, has been a word in scholarship for around the arts. And recently, of course, we encountered its Bengali version in Kela, as in Kela Hobe and all that. So quite interesting. Did you not mention to me at one point of time that this was part of your, coursework that you had to submit? So the question that I really wanted to ask you is, so was it a creative indulgence or was it driven more by uh, compliances of coursework?
No, actually, I think coursework was there because I was studying image and communication. So it was all about camera and video. So for this particular film, it's stop motion. So it's a bunch of photographs that you then put together to create movement, but in a sort of jerky sort of way to bring that angst to life. So I think for this, it was definitely a compulsion to put what I was feeling into movement. And because it wasn't choreographed, because it was play, because it was just putting feelings into movement and then seeing what happens and then taking it to the edit table and putting it together. And the red stamp came into life because that window, as you called it, and that something that binds you came into life as an aftermath visually. So it was definitely something that one had to do rather than coursework.
Thank you very much. I'll come back to you for my last final questions, which is the way your work is moving ahead. And while you think about how you want to answer that question, let me bring on Neha right now. Neha, thank you so much for joining us. As I mentioned earlier, she's in Australia. It's the middle of the night there. And I'm surprised. She's such a disciplined person, waking up early, that how she is managing to keep up. But thank you so much for joining us, Neha. And your films, both of them, which actually created a curatorial choice, a hard choice for me. Your filmography is so much bigger than what we've actually featured. But Forest has ever appealed to me because the minute I turn it on, I feel like there's a breath of fresh air that just passes by me and all that. So what I find very interesting about the two films that we did include is that both of them are in the outdoors. Now this is a complete change from regular locations of dance that we are used to. Is it a conscious site for you now? Are you saying something more than just than than what dance says normally.
Thank you, Arshaji. That's an amazing question because, yes, when I started to make all of these films, they were very much based on stories of animals and birds from their perspective. So it kind of made sense to be outdoors. But as I made the first one, I realized that it is very humbling to be in nature, and the grandness, the vastness, the givingness of nature puts a lot of things in perspective. So if you're trying to speak from that point of how can you convey this in an honest manner, I feel being there's a kind of vibration which is very spiritual, and it's very easy to then enact all of those roles, even if I'm not now expressing animals and birds. And I recently did this international collaboration on resilience. Even if it wasn't, and where we had a choice, because the way the world is right now, most people are indoors. We had a choice whether to make it indoors or outdoors. But my portions were outdoors because I realized it is a whole different vibration being outdoors and dancing. And if you really want to see resilience, you only have to look at anything in nature to see that resilience and rootedness come through.
So, dance is intersectional always, but you are making a very conscious choice that you're raising issues of the environment, about the habitats of animals. You are sharing insights into animal behavior, which more and more we are city city livers are totally unconnected with. Like, the mother's love, that cobra thing, it struck me, and I am actually quite active with the wildlife and all that, but it struck me as, oh my god, really, yes, that's true, we needed to look at it. So on the second film, I have two questions. One has actually been put by one of our viewers, one of the attendees, and they say they wanted you to talk about the metaphor of mother in the cobra. And the second question I want to ask you is this an astute choice as well? Because it suddenly opens up new funding possibilities, new audiences, new performance venues, show your work, which is focusing on animals. And of course, thank you. Through your work, we get to see a lot of the beauty of the Australian outdoors.
Yes. Thankfully for me, because dance is a passion, I did not do this consciously for other aspects of avenues, etc. But yes, you're right. It did open up a lot of new audiences in the form of people who would otherwise not watch classical arts, but would want to appreciate it. How do you then connect it to them? Because often classical arts can get overwhelming when we come in from the background of a stage or the costumes, etc. They are exciting, but a lot of people are like, no, we may not understand it. So it kind of creates that barrier. So really, to break it, you kind of need to go down to that the character itself to try to get the message across. But the other part of the cobra was, with animals, I feel like the reason we've all kind of landed in this soup now, and the way life is going ahead, is because more and more humans have let their ego decide the way forward in life. It's all about me, my work, myself, my opportunities, at the cost of everything else. We don't look at who we're hurting, what we're losing in the process. And a king cobra is probably the last thing we'll think about when we think of maternal love. We'll usually think of so many other more gentler, approachable creatures. But who are we to decide who judges who? And that's the beauty of the animal kingdom. Everyone has their beauty, has their role, has their purpose. And humans would do really well if we kind of fit in with this purpose rather than looking at all of them from a lens above.
So I'm compelled to ask you one more question, at least in this round, that as I proceed, and that is, obviously you're coming from an activist, environmental activist kind of position. So have you responded to anything immediate? like something has happened and you have been able to create a work, and that it has spoken to people.
Right. I think when we had mentioned about the elephant video that I had made, so this situation had come up in India where that elephant in Kerala was either murdered or it was an accident, but she basically ate the firecrackers, right? The pineapple and the firecrackers. And they say she committed suicide because she was pregnant and she went and, she just stood in the river because she couldn't take the pain of. And that obviously made me cry when I read it. I absolutely love animals and I couldn't believe something like that could actually be. We could do stuff like this. And I understand farmers have issues as well. So I'm not judging here. But just as an artist, it really struck. And I made a piece on that, and it's but instead of talking of the gloom side of it, I feel that's the power of arts. Yes, definitely we can show the gloom side, but we also have the capacity to uplift people through our actions which words probably wouldn't have. And I created that piece on the mother and baby elephant, and what if they had lived, how would they have had a bath together, because elephants love bath, bathing in the river. And so it was just a happy piece and it kind of resonated well. And I saw a couple of news channels had picked it up immediately. So instead of the clipping of the elephant, they were actually showing my dance to get that message across in India, which was very nice to see that that's the power of
Yeah,
our.
I love that piece, and I'm really sorry that we could not include it because I wanted to give the shock of the cobras. So hence, with limited time, I could not do that. I'm sorry. Maybe there'll be another occasion when we can feature the mother and the baby elephant. I think it's called that only, isn't it? Mother and baby elephant.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
So thank you so much for sharing with us such a wonderful fractal of the way dance intersects with other issues.
Thank you so much.
Aditi, can I talk to you next, please, about Within from Within? So
Thank you.
thank you so much. This is for all of you. The chat thing has gone on quite a long time, and it's only wonderful words. And in the Q&A also, there are wonderful words about all of you. Aditi, there have been some panelists who have made remarked on your work. Within from Within, which really stands out in this curation as probably the only work which was performed for the stage first and then inspires the dance films, so I want you to talk a little bit about how these widespread within sites played out in weaving this wonderful, each vignette is so emotive. And if you would like to talk about any particular vignette in Framed or any one of them, please feel free to do that, because yours is actually a very large set of questions because there are many pieces in it. Yeah.
Thank you, Arshia, and thank you, Sangeeta, for having me here. I think when we went into the lockdown, the residue of Within was still inside us. We had performed it extensively in 2019. In all the dancers within me, the memory of the emotional, physical, intellectual memory of Within was still with us. And yet something had changed drastically. I chose Within also because it's about the actual production, is about looking at the duality of humanity and brutality that is within each of us. And the current time is so many emotions are in this cauldron. It's like a roller coaster of, I don't know the word of multiplicity rather than duality of emotions that are surging through us. So I wanted to explore what this current situation, and as you know, Arshia, most of my work responds to the now when I start to make it. So how do we explore our current reality through this production. The compulsions were, I'm a Kathak dancer, Kathakar. I wanted to find a different way of reaching out and narrating maybe a completely different story. I wanted to find expansion within this sudden constriction. I wanted to keep the creativity alive, however much I could within myself and my dancers. And most importantly, that we are all privileged that we are even sitting and discussing all this. But these films were made in collaboration with Raw Mango and Art Matters as a fundraiser to offer it to people that, okay, guys, please open your hearts. Because we raised funds for the artists who are really struggling to survive. And now I'm talking about August or somewhere 2020. And so how do you respond? As you said, if I wanted to explain one of the films in Unravel, you see the within, there's a ring in the performance where I'm within it and I'm trapped. It's circular. And with the camera, I was able to move really close. And it was actually a circle in my dining chair. There were little holes. That was the design of the dining chair. So I made that as the keyhole. I don't have to say I'm trapped, because as soon as you bring this in, you talk about being excluded from something else. Things like that, in the last film, Impassion, it's about yaar ko humne ja baja dekha all over. So we use this metaphor of spinning, but the camera also was spinning with me. So suddenly you saw the chaos of my room, and then suddenly a blank wall with just shadows. And I thought that expressed again this duality and this multiplicity. Or this boy spinning quite beautifully and yet in a closet with all his clothes hanging all around. So these were residual things that we tried to explore while making the film Within from Within.
So it's interesting that you talked about the dining chair, because my next question is a little bit about that. Now, Aditi, everybody knows that you're very particular about the perfect light, the perfect angle, and you will not broker any shortfall, shortcoming. You will go that extra mile to ensure it. During lockdown, we were particularly, shuttered in, and we had to make do with what was available. Even for our food, we had to make do with what was available and things like that. So, how did you deal with this enforced, limitations, and how did you minimize it from your work?
Well, I think the first thing to say is that it's okay not to know. It's okay to fail. And it's okay to show your vulnerability, I think. I mean, my first reaction with the lockdown was to put a camera in front of me and actually dance things that I was not really comfortable with. I had just made maybe half an hour before, so I was making mistakes. And I think I wanted to reach out with this vulnerability that, guys, it's okay. We all don't know what's happening. We are all in the same boat. So I would begin with that. And then, I would say I'm the world's worst photographer. I was the last person to ever, even on a family holiday, to take family photographs, let alone a dance video, or try to think of angles and all. But one had to, the reality was this, forget what was or what may happen. And therefore, one had to reskill, one had to reimagine, and then transform. One is, Arshia, about the technique. technique. So we all started learning about this little instrument that we all have, experimenting with it. What are angles? What does the camera see against what I see? What light does? What shades of shadows there are? Some things that you take so much for granted. How does something moving very fast, how is that captured? How can you suspend time and space? Because you can with a lens. Um, so how does color happen? You know, we used one way from black and white to color. How is it possible where in 1 minute you narrate a story which would be impossible live? So I feel that as you asked, how did we overcome our many, many thousands and millions of uh, drawbacks, and they are still there, is by sitting down. I said, let me try and see how I can, how I choreograph my work. I said, okay, let me see how I'm going to direct this film. I want to be quiet and let the concept just sink in, or just dance and let the ideas, images, spaces flower. We had teen research and rehearsals on Zoom with my dancers who were all locked in, as you say. One was some of them were able to get out. What was in Singapore, most were in Delhi in very small. And what is the light in the afternoon? What is it in the evening? What are the shadows? Is there a little tree outside your room where the shadow falls into your? What are the things available to you which you can use as props? One guy had a cooler card, the jali of a cooler. I had the cover of a wine bottle, so through which we were showing the rasas that were again embroiled. Much looking at my editing table, and learning how to, it was like hours. He went crazy. I said, no. And this kind of detailed notes, hundreds of footage that all of us sent each other. So, but I think overall, to say it's okay to fail, we have to communicate. This has not been a medium. Who knows what is going to happen in the future? And let's make the best of it with what we have. Curtains, shower curtains, that was my shower curtain. So it's, yeah.
Yeah, experiments, taking the opportunity, serendipity plays a very big role in normal filmmaking.
Yes.
As Binish said, the play,
Yes.
or Sanjukta said, the play is so critical. You never know what's going to work. I mean, don't make any judgments because the camera sees things differently. So I hope that the viewer yesterday who asked the question about choreography for the camera has heard this, because there are many tips right here. And maybe I would like to ask you one more question, which is actually somebody's question. The somebody is well known, Subodh Rathore of Wise Thoughts in London.
Hi,
Yes,
Subodh.
he asks the question, how has lockdown changed your understanding of dance? And this was going to be the question I would leave you momentarily for, is, has it allowed you to see dance even more deeply, or from the outside more, or from the inside more?
Uh, the first thing that happened with this lockdown is I found security in what is known, because everything was unknown outside, right? Everything with suddenly. And one thing that we decided to do, Subodh, is to not let go of our regime. Every single day, 10 o'clock, Zoom, dancers from wherever. Okay, let's tie our ghungroos, whoever could, and let's just dance it out. Whatever we knew, whatever happened. And yet there was immense anxiety constantly. I mean, this has not been a part of my dance vocabulary so much in before the pandemic. To have this kind of anxiety, and now what we see is this kind of devastation unfolding. At times, Subodh, to be honest, I don't want to dance, honestly. So if you ask me right now, um, I think it would be just stillness, just to be quiet, to be able to look out, um, and let that be within me. But every day we wake up in the morning and say, no, maybe somebody will get solace. So it has changed in many ways, and it has been reflected in the films that I have made, because this was from within that we showed, was one of the first few experiments, and then things have changed. Um, I don't think I would right now be comfortable to dance what I danced just before the pandemic, to share it. I dance it, yes, every day. As I said, I feel comfortable in the known, but I don't feel comfortable to share that because it feels as if it's from somewhere else. And therefore, uh, I think as an artist, I would like to really let my dance be immersed in the current. And whichever way it's going to go, um, uh, let it go. I mean, recently it's going to premiere on the 16th. It's a poem, beautiful poem that Shubha Mudgal gave me by Kumar Narayanji, talking about river in the boat. Times have become so, time and space is so amorphous that the boat is not on the river is on the boat. And therefore, I would answer you, Subodh, by saying, yes, everything has been turned upside down.
Thank you, Aditi, for saying this so beautifully. And we look forward to the poem that Shubha has sent you, Kubanarayanji's, and we look forward to how you have treated it, because even at the opening of today's thing, I talked about how the ship, allows the water to come in. That's what we don't want. We are doing whatever we can. Honestly, this Chakshu has been done in the most difficult manner. The trials and tribulations
Yeah.
that we have faced has been phenomenal, but we just put one foot in front of the other, one day to the other, and because that was the only way to live. you know
Absolutely.
it may not have been the ideal way of living, but it is the only way we can show ourselves we are living, and we're putting up a fight, resisting. So I wonder whether these are political choices in a way that we are making to defy through our art and what we do best. Now it's a grappling situation. You're grappling every day with things. So I really think I understand where uh, grapple came from. Santosh, could I speak with you a little bit about grapple, please? I know, Ananya and Darren, that chronologically I should have gone with you, but these days chronology is not a good word in India. Uh, but grappling is the reality. And hello, can I have you, Santosh, again? I know.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Ah.
So, Santosh, thank you for sharing this work. Actually, you have been more than kind to us. You have shared work in the past also. Before I come to that, I want to talk a little bit about this. The unique thing about this work is, while I keep asking everybody about fundings and supports and producers and all that, the interesting thing about this is that it has been produced by the Battery Dance Company, which is based in New York. Now, a group of artists already dealing with the problems of the COVID times, the lack of opportunities, livelihood issues, have actually supported you in this. Answer it in two parts, please. How did did this support happen? And what is the philosophy of artist supporting artist? I know that Aditi has also supported through Within from Within artists. They are anonymous artists. She didn't know who she was going to be supporting. But Battery knew who they were supporting. So what is this philosophy and how did it happen?
See, basically this festival came to me when I was interacting with Jonathan through Messenger, and he was asking what's happening in India and Delhi. So I was told him about, after lockdown, everybody is just, finding their own ways in the social media, especially. And like there's a different meetings and people are, showing their work and all. And I told him I was preparing some small piece for one song, which composed and created by Maulik Shah and Ishira Parikh. And they asked me to create some small contemporary piece for that particular song. I told him I'm preparing some piece for making some small video. Then he, told me about, can you make some dance film for my festival if you are interested? And, I suddenly given the reply to him, it's a very good opportunity for me. And from there, the grapple started. And because the responsibility began to me, especially because before that, we are just making productions and performing on stage. Making a dance film was a totally new area for us. But I started as small, videos, making some our own promotional thing for Sadhya, for my company, to promote our company work and classes, workshop. This was little began, small level, but presenting work in the festival was an international festival for Battery Dance Company when they're organizing. They're inviting different entries from different countries. So it's a huge responsibility in my shoulder. So that grapple began from there, and I created this piece with a small number of people. Because of the lockdown, we can't bring many people in the studio. So I involved only my two dancers, Sudhir and Sahul was part of that movie.
So these films that you made, the small promotional films, what have you done with that? The films you made to promote Sadhya.
Yes.
Because that by itself is a genre of dance filmmaking, with
Yes.
promotional films.
Yeah. Because, we have plenty of big work and the small work like productions and organizing festivals. And one of my students, is very good in the editing and all. So I asked him to edit some of our old work and post it in the social media. At least people know about, what all happened in Sadhya.
Right.
So this is the beginning of that whole process. And making the grapple is a totally different experience. And the good part, this festival was the paid festival, and that, help us to bring the professional aspects like the cameraman and the light person and the editor person, and we can able to pay also to our artists, because always motivate them, especially during the lockdown time.
Right, I understand that. And in fact, I find it very interesting the way you have used light and the note about grapple that you sent. It's a small few lines, but it said that, between darkness and light, and you grapple to get to the light point. But, the very interesting thing, and which actually comes through in this, is that both in the darkness, you disappear, and in the light, you disappear. In too much light, it is in that period of grayness as you're moving that the dancer gets seen. Dark, no dancer seen. Too much light, no dancer seen. But in between, so it's actually quite a philosophical thing and teaches us the lesson that yahi zindagi ka naam hai. This is what life is all about. Not
Exactly.
when it's too bad or not when it's too good. Talk a little bit about the earlier film that you had made also, which I included for the In Motion Dance Festival's curation.
Yes. That was the piece called The Awakening.
Yes.
And that was the more into the spiritual line, because, I was working on that yogic side, and because I have the Chow background, and Chow has that quality where you can use your body and the inside your own spiritual world to explore and using the body as instruments. So I created this piece at Zorba the Buddha, and my friend Ashwin given me the whole space as a collaborator to use that space for the video. And the whole piece, the awakening, especially in the dark period, when we are all going through the all mentally and physically. So that piece is basically based on how to at least motivate yourself and explore yourself from inside. And that's very important. And somewhere, that is carrying forward for all of us to explore the inner world.
So I think the lockdown period and the extended lockdown period has actually compelled us to go inwards and see our work through a spiritual lens as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See, this is basically is a pause for all of us.
It
because
is.
Because we've gone through, from the last maybe more than 30 years, 40 years, many people are, just busy with their own performances, shows and all. But this particular time is given a lot of scope to explore in yourself.
Well, thank you so much for sharing so frankly about how the process worked out for you. And I hope you get many more paid festivals so that we get some lovely films.
Yes, artists need that.
And the amazing artists you have at Sadhya.
Thank you, Arshaji and Sangeeta, for organizing this wonderful festival, and it's a very, very important aspect, especially for this difficult time. Thank you so much.
And it may well be an indication of the way forward, what will happen tomorrow.
Exactly.
So thanks.
Thank you.
Sangeeta, technically I should ask you some questions at this point, but because you are hosting the festival with me, if you don't mind, I would like to ask Darren and Ananya the questions first. So again, when I'm faced with the two of you and sitting together as well in distant Minneapolis, my city of great love and affection, I don't know who I should ask this question from first. But let me begin with you, Ananya. And you have, I know, I saw that Darren. Darren is a man of few words, but some amazing canoeing skills. And we've done some wonderful canoeing trips together, small trips. Ananya, your question. It's a little bit of what I asked Aditi, because you too are equally concerned always about your commitment to excellence. Nothing, not even the immense activism that your work stands for, stands in the way of professional excellence. Okay, so hence I ask you, and I know you to be impatient as well and the perfectionist as well, that when you were doing outdoors, working in the outdoors with the unpredictability of the outdoors, how much did you have to adapt from your original idea? This should feed into a bigger question, which is that you have mostly made your work for stage. So how did this opportunity, a real sledgehammer in a manner of speaking, suddenly having to not do the annual performance in a well-equipped stage, but in the outdoors, how did this teach you to look at your work? Did it teach you to look at your work? What compromises or add-ons, opportunities, choreographic insights, expansion of your vision happened because of this chance that was virtually forced on you?
Hi, Arshia. So, because I think the first thing about the commitment to excellence is to understand how we speak to the imaginations of audiences, right? And here we were in Minneapolis, under a regime of hate, as you know, politically. And then May 25th happened, the murder of, here we were, the murder of Mr. George Floyd happened, and people poured out onto the streets. The first thing I want to recognize is that everything was filmed around us, around my house, around the institute where we rehearse. Everything is right there. And we had also the
pandemics, like the pandemic of hate, of racial hate, the pandemic of the unhoused community was all around us. So figuring excellence from that standpoint, when everything is burning around you, was really about understanding how to translate emotion and marry it in a bigger way with our technical base. So footwork on slippery gravel is very different from footwork on a beautiful floor, a stage floor. And I think trying to say bowls over our masks, so difficult, and trying to find it was a really difficult thing to re-find the specificity, the aesthetic specificity, which is so important to me. But we were so thankful to be able to be together and dance that I think we constantly figured out how to actually find footwork despite the slipperiness of the gravel underneath our feet, the mud, the water, all of that. Figuring that out was just took for all, that was all of the summer months. May till September was all about figuring that out. And I think the other thing I'll say is that living with a filmmaker and seeing how he edits over the years has just really, this really shifted my choreographic imagination. I love live performance. I'm committed to live performance. But choreographing for dance films is just an entirely different skills, and I really had to think through how memory might work, right? We don't imagine memory. Memory doesn't work in a linear way, right? It juxtaposes different things. So when I witnessed Darren's editing work process, I was able to reimagine choreographically how things might juxtapose, how time and space could be really intermingled in important ways to suggest the reality that we were living through. So I feel like I learned to choreograph in two ways. I learned to choreograph for film, and I remembered, I figured out how to choreograph for the stage some time ago, but now I learned to choreograph for film. It's a different skill.
So thank you for explaining this. And again, I hope that your answer speaks to the person who asked me the question yesterday about, what are the principles of choreographing for the camera. And just to balance it, I'd like to move momentarily to you, Darren, and ask you this question that, I'm familiar with your visual design elements that you have kept in the ADT work in the past. It has been a critical component of ADT's work. It has layered it beautifully. The last one that I saw particularly, it was just amazing what you had done with it there. But you were the visual designer for the film portions in that. The control was still the choreographer's control. But when it comes to this film, this entire annual production in a way, which took the form of a film, you became co-choreographer. And sometimes actually the super choreographer, because you could on the edit table just mix and match and create its own excitement, its own rhythm. And so that's my first question. Were you aware of this role? How much did you play up this role? And finally, did this living together, this close proximity with the choreographer of the piece actually allow you to anticipate her sometimes or outsmart her and others? They have the cutest relationship.
I have to use reverse psychology because whatever I say, she'll say, no, we'll do the opposite. No, we've worked together for a long time. And so I think we understand each other's sensibilities pretty well. And where each other's going with that. There's actually a lot of unspoken language. It's just like, here's an idea. And without fleshing it out, I think we're pretty much on the same page with a lot of it. This project really differed in the sense that when I'm designing multimedia for the stage. It's kind of designing stuff to augment the performance, whereas this is really helping to create the performance, and bringing people a different experience than they can get from watching a stage performance. And try to imagine, where I'm really at with dance films these days is like, what does the dancer see when they're dancing? And I'm really moving the camera more to try to get into where the dancer's at. And this was the beginning of that sort of, creating different worlds that you can't create on stage.
That's true. I mean, I have watched watched Dastak now several times, and there are beautiful moments about it which I wait for to catch when it comes. And one of them, for instance, is the little boat moment. When that little boat is there, and it's sort of not there or not there again, as you said, about memories. And it's so many things that it says. Minneapolis is a hub of refugee settlements as well, so this boat and all that. And actually my opening choice of the ship metaphor today was driven by that. And it's so strange that Aditi picks it up and is going to be working next on the imagery of the boat and the river. uh, Okay, that was just something I wanted to lead in with. But the question I really want to ask you, Ananya, is this braiding that you do of stated and the unstated, or stated and the suggested, the two cultures, the Native American culture and the Indian culture, 108 beads, 108, Surya Namaskars, the saris, the bindis, and all that. And yet, with the sounds, the chanting, the incantations, even your location. This was that beautiful prairie place, where the native grasses are growing, kind of a thing. So, answer how you do it. I mean, how do you weave in so many things? Was it a conscious, pre-planned thing, or when you went there, you saw many opportunities also and wove that in? And I'm saying this when my next question is going to be about fire, which really is my favorite segment in it. Who wants to answer it? Ananya, I think you should answer this one.
Asha, I really have learned that film sees so much that I have to plan. I have to plan carefully so that, you know, it's like improvisation still has to have structure, so that there is actually intention really shines through. As you know, we're responding both to the space of uh, Native American genocide here, and also, as I said, the African American communities and police brutality. So it's not just one thing, but I am very clear that my training is in South Asian dance. I'm an Indian dance practitioner. And that is what my contemporary dance language is rooted in. So I can respond only from that basis. And I think that's the most honest thing I can do. I can respond. I can be I can be a global, I can have a global perspective from the location of my rooted feet. And my feet are, the way in which we use our feet we are trained to use our feet in Indian dance is very particular. I use the flexion, the heaviness of my footwork, the grounded yet nimble technique of Indian footwork to really take me across different sites, but to respond from that basis. It's really important to me and to the dancers I work with that we remain culturally located or aesthetically located inside this aesthetic and then respond from that. And I think it's important. So I'm not trying to be what I'm not.
Right. As honest as you can. As you said, honesty is a critical part of your intent. So, Darren, you have made another film on ADT, which has been forever in the making. It took, you've been capturing them, their challenges, their rise, their achievements. And it's a wonderful film. Kri Foundation has had the privilege of showing that film here in India. It is a labor of love stretched over a very long time. And this is also a labor of love, I'm sure, but sort of capsuled in a short time. How did you feel between the two processes? I want you to give the answer from the director's point of view so that the person who asked me that question, what choreography for the camera, can see that different visions encapsulate different works.
Well, the first one is more of a documentary. So that's more of getting to tell their story, how the company evolved. Whereas this one, it's more of a narrative. It's helping to tell the story and creating the story with them. What are we trying to get at here, and how do we tell the story? So they're very, very different approaches to it.
Right.
Yeah.
And what thrills you more?
You know, they both are interesting. They both have their own challenges. In the documentary style, I think it's trying to get at the truth of what's going on and telling that truth in an innovative way. So it's not just kind of formulaic, you know, A, then B, then C, and and particularly working with metaphor of dance to really try to metaphorically get at the story and what's going on. You know, we're working with metaphor a lot, actually more so even in this one, but it's like, okay, here's what we want to convey. How do we get there? You know, and you're creating footage, whereas documentary, we're using footage that goes back 10 years in some cases, and it's, you know, 90% stage performances, taking stuff off the stage, which is interesting because, you know, as an audience member, you're seeing a wide stage, so when you go back and look at the film, you try to capture, you know, what you can put in the box, you know, and the gestures. Yeah, there's a lot more leeway when you're on location because you can film those close-ups or the mudras.
Yes, I noticed that leeway in that fire thing, for instance. I mean, I couldn't believe that you had actually found that venue, and that is truly a disheartening place to be in. Every time I used to go past that, when I was staying there, I used to feel a little down. But you made it into a site, and the way from that red, the weave of the red tape kind of a thing that you caught some.
Yeah.
That's something that you could be referring to when you say this.
That was right across the street from the precinct station where the whole uprising began. So that whole neighborhood is just flattened now. It all burned.
I know Minneapolis has seen some really bad times, and I see this echo continuing for a while. I will not be surprised if next year and maybe the year after that we will still see this echo in your work, Ananya.
Yeah, just a reminder though that the issue is the the uprising is a result of long time injustice. Some things need to burn so that we can be reborn, and place has been that is the place from which we had to dance. That's why we danced of love. The last trio in fire is filmed in front of Moon Palace Books right here, right? And this against the statement of abolish the police. What can we dance? To me, that was where, and I think this has been the most active year, unfortunately, for protests. Here we were just looking at Derek Chauvin's travel, and another young man, 20 years old, was murdered, Dante Wright. It's just too much. And it's just, how do we find dance in the middle of that has been the biggest question. Arshi, I'll say one quick thing about your 108. So Sharon Bridgeforth's brilliant poem, and she works with what she calls a jazz aesthetic, which is, a structured improvisation where multiple voices and it's a kind of mosaic, right? So she created that based out of our creative process. And then Spirit McIntyre sings Longo Oya in air, where she's coming from the basis of Yoruba in invocations of Oya, the spirit, the Yoruba deity. So I think it's really, they are also responding from where they're coming from. So everyone is responding from that, and I think the intersections are where our richness lies.
True. So thank you, both of you, for giving us such a deeper insight into it. Please don't walk off. If you can, still hold on. Or if you have to go, because I know you have a rehearsal schedule, I'll quite understand that. And we'll speak later at another date. But I want to come to Sangeeta now. And Sangeeta, I really have two very important questions to ask you. The first question is a bit of a chicken and egg kind of a question. Did the idea drive your film? Did the idea and the experience of being locked in and not being in the glamorous spaces and the beauty spaces and under the lights, but being in domestic environments locked up there? Did that idea drive your work, or was it the possibilities of the camera and the editing table that come together that really drove your work? So, what was the driving force in this work?
Well, first of all, I would like to thank you, Arsha ji, for insisting me to keep Quest in this curation, because I was feeling out of box, because as you know, and I have spoken to you, that Quest was never planned to become a film. I never knew that what am I doing. So during the first the pandemic hit us, as per human psychology, I think we all go into flight, freeze, and fight mode. And that is what happened to me. I was absolutely in the mode of freeze, I believe. And I was just documenting my creative impulses without knowing what at all I'm doing, because I had no idea of bringing it all together and make a film out of it. So honestly, I had no clue what I'm doing. So to you, I would answer that mm I was driven by this impulse of what is going within. There were many questions pertaining to why I dance, which I used there, that I was really not feeling to, like, my body was really not responding. It was very experiential what I did with Quest. So everything that you have seen is very much experiential. I went through that. And that is the question that eared me, that why do I dance? And by the end of it, I think I got the answer that that dance is not something which I have to be. It is not something performative, and that's the best thing I think I have derived from Quest, and it is leading me through in future also during this time, where all that glamour that you spoke of is somehow becoming redundant and is not speaking to me anymore. I just feel that the beauty is always when it is inherent and when it is coming from within somewhere deep. So somebody need not have to be beautiful just to be glamorous. So beauty is something which comes from within. Yeah.
So I think what you've done with this film, without probably realizing it in that case, is you have brought dance to corners that it has not, and spaces it has not been before. The driveway, the hard to get to corner, even to clean of a bedroom, your bed, and so many places that dance is never seen. Now I'm sure when I look at a corner or somebody else looks at the driveway, you can visualize dance as well. So you've compelled us to visualize dance in unlikely spaces. So I'll wind up here because I get a chance again to talk to you tomorrow. But I wind up only because we are running out of time, and I would like everybody
And
to.
there are many questions, Arshaji. So
Yes,
if you could take some
there are
of them.
two questions particularly that I have been holding on to. One is something that I think, Darren, you might want to look at answering. Films took over mass theater, but live theater like West End or Broadway has survived, but and has not only survived but has become huge as well. The same way, dance films might augment live performances rather than supplant them. How do you think dance films will play out? Which ones will they replace, and which ones will they complement? So do you have any thoughts about it, since you have been part of the augmenting process and now the dance filmmaking process?
Right. Well, first of all, I don't think anything replaces a live performance. There's nothing like a live performance. So, and I'm sure many dancers would agree with that as well as musicians. But you're right, there's a huge explosion of dance films. I was doing one with Rutgers University, and they said they produced 56 dance films with their students this year, which is unprecedented. You know, that's never happened before. So there's a huge explosion of that. But I think of it more like a new, almost, you know, dance films have been around forever, but people are exploring it like a new art form. There's a lot of young people doing it, and I think it's great. I think that the whole language of dance is going to expand through this. The interesting thing will be when we get back to full-fledged performances again, if dance films influence how the stage evolves from now on. You know, that'll be the interesting question.
Yes, I know. I've seen some lovely performances that are built around the dance film. That's a central dancer in the production kind of thing. So thank you very much, Darren, for giving us this answer. And that is true. Nothing can change the magic of a live performance. I'll end off by asking you a question that Shruti Vasudevan has asked me. By the way, this dance film question also is from a dancer and a London-based dancer. And let me see if I can access the name. Yeah, Neelambari, who is a London-based Odissi dancer. We'll end off with asking everybody for a quick take on Shruti's question, which is, did choreographing specifically for the camera impact or change your understanding of dance and yourself as a dancer? Maybe we take this from Santosh. Ananya, before you leave, would you like to do this? Did this dance work? You heard the question, did you? Yeah.
Yeah.
Change your
Yeah,
understanding of
I think it completely changes. That's exactly what I'm trying to say. That as a choreographer for the stage, I have a different understanding of structure. And choreographing for the camera, the structure is entirely different because different things are possible. Because, you know, editing is possible. Because, and I want to say that that it's not a shortcut, right? It's not a shortcut like, oh, I did the footwork bad or I fell off balance here, so I can cut it out. It's not that. Sometimes I think I hear people say that and it really bothers me because it's about imagery. What is the juxtaposition you can create with imagery that can enrich the articulation of your thematic focus? That's what I think structurally.
Thank you so much, Ananya. Santosh, would you like to say something about this? You need to unmute yourself. Yep.
Yeah. See, basically, there's two different mediums totally. The choreographing for stage performance and for the camera. What I realize is two has a very beautiful the advantage and the disadvantage also. Because here for the camera, you require a lot of patience yourself. Because in one sequence, you can shot in different angles. In multiple angles, you can shoot. Here as a dancer, you know, because as a physical dancer, require a lot of strength and a lot of patience for yourself. But the stage performance, when you create a 30 minutes piece, you just finish it in 30 minutes. But for the camera, but there is scope is much more here for the camera because you can use different angles, and editing is the best thing, you know, when you, as a choreographer working with the editor, is give you a lot of different dimension basically.
Right.
So I feel it's the two different interesting areas.
It's interesting that you talk about the labor and the multiplying of the labor exponentially when you make a film. Whereas
Yes.
we know many people say film banao, khatam karo and all that. It's
No.
the other way around. Neha, hello, wake up, darling. I know it's the middle of the night for you. But tell me, has this opportunity of working with dance film changed you, changed your dance?
I think Santosh sir is right about the perspectives it gives. And so oftentimes with this stage, there are a lot of emotions that, let's say someone sitting right at the back is not able to see when there's abhinay involved, and very subtle abhinaya. So that is very well communicated through the lens. And we have the advantage of that. That's for sure. The other thing is, of course, right, experimenting with locations. How often does that happen? if you want to share a pertinent message. So just an example, I don't know if you know, I run this project called Sarvam Shakti, which works with slum girls and empowerment in arts. And what is interesting is I noticed recently, I wanted to share something about them and learning in the slums. But if that performance had been done on the stage, yes, it would have still been moving. But to see that through the lens of how they, in their background, in their comfort zone, they're doing something which is so not available for them otherwise, it completely brought a different emotion to their dance altogether. And I think only the lens could have captured that level of sensitivity, which if you remove them from their setting may not come. So I think it's a very important medium going forward.
I think so too. I'm glad you've picked up on the capacity of the lens to be able to catch a little tremor of the hand too, which on the large auditoriums that we have to deal with, you lose, right? So thank you very much. Can I give you the last word, Aditi? And let me ask Binish and Sanjukta to give their inputs on this aspect. Binish, maybe you first?
So I guess I was thinking about this as you guys were talking. For me, it's different because I'm not a dancer myself, but I'm behind the camera. So the way I see it is a bit different. But just like you said, an image can say so much. So you don't need, and I'm a wordy person, I talk a lot and I can articulate until the cows come home. But and I can do that. But I think that what an image says is so impactful. And I think there's something to be said about a still image and a moving image. So when you pause an image, it says something very different to when you move that image. And playing between that with the camera tells a very different story. So what you can do with dance and movement when you freeze frame it, as somebody mentioned, and then when you move it, is so powerful.
And the possibilities, the still and the movement happening together. The camera just opens up a whole new world.
Different world, absolutely. And I definitely want to take this opportunity to thank you for inspiring me again, for making me a part of this, because hearing everybody's story, it's definitely inspired me to make more films, because I haven't done it in a while. So thank you so much for that.
When we spoke, I told you I want you to be back in making films.
Absolutely.
That's wonderful.
I am looking forward to that. So thank you.
Thank you. Sanjukta, where are you? I don't see you.
Hi, I'm here.
Sanjukta. Tell me, when you made the film, or have you made any others since?
No, I just wanted to talk about this idea of liveness, because I miss liveness so much. But there are very few people who can capture liveness from behind the lens, and that's extremely important, because when I look at all my work that's been filmed, it's ghastly. I don't want to show that, because it's like this one camera view with it doesn't look anything like the life.
So that's not making a dance film. This one camera.
And in fact, the only work that I've shown is by Nan, who was there. She filmed my work in New York, and that is the piece that I've been able to put out there for audiences. So I think as dancers, even archiving our own work and recording process need to have that sensitive eye behind the camera to do it. You can't just put a camera there in the corner and record. It's very important for the person behind the lens to breathe with you. And I think breath, and I think Kalpana spoke about that yesterday as well. The breath is really going to lead us through this. We need to breathe together and collectively. I think it's not an individual process. It's all of us working collectively.
Dance film more than anything else.
It's Binesh's work. It's our work. It can't be a singular.
The point you mentioned about liveness, about breath, it plays in the editing also. I have had some experience of being with television as dance was recorded, and I have seen when the edits of the shots have been made on tala, and they flow so smoothly. And should you make an edit not on a sum or not on on tal, it disrupts the breath. So not everybody is made out to be even an editor for dance. You know, you have to have that sensibility. Now, how you build that sensibility in each other is a process of investment, but that's important. Okay, thank you so much for sharing. Aditi, have the last word on how dance and dance filmmaking changes you as a person and your dance.
Well, the first thing I would like to say that whichever film I was making or attempted to make, one thing I didn't want to do is give the viewer a sense of the live, of a live performance. But what I did want to do is give a feeling that one would not get were we in a live performance. So everything that the camera can see, can tell, can feel, um, to use those inputs rather than trying to attempt to make a film that is live. So I have a question actually, that who tells the story? Is it a dancer? Is it the choreographer? Is it the image? Is it the camera? Is it the editor? Um, is it the music? Is it the suspension and the contraction or the expansion of time and space? Is it the light? Is it the color? So there are so many textures. And what I find fascinating is that with this medium, in 1 minute, you can capture an entire narrative, which is for me fascinating. And how the performing arts and the visual arts, somehow the line gets amorphous, you know, so it seeps into each other. Of course, it will impact what one thinks, how one approaches one's work. And it's interesting. I think the film I just made recently, Lost in the Forest, the camera person, as Sanjukta mentioned, breath, he was dancing with me. I mean, it was incredible because, you know, we are taught to project distant, but the camera was here and he wasn't necessarily catching my eyes. He was catching the whole of me, but with a movement. So he was spinning around me, dancing with me. When I was showing the river, he was actually becoming the river, the camera. It was quite, and I had to stop myself from just stopping and watching his movements, Nirvair Singh, that is. Yeah, so when I saw that, there is a long way for at least my attempts at filmmaking goes. But it's an interesting journey, and I think it will impact, it is impacting the way one thinks, one explores dance and choreography.
Wonderful. Thank you. This dance with the dancer, something that Nan said yesterday, which reminded me of just now in the chat, that, you know, you just stay out of the frame. That's the only thing you need to do, but you dance with the dancer. I've noticed that we have still with us, although we have far exceeded the time, and for which I apologize to you, Ananya. You had told me earlier, why don't you leave? I'm feeling very guilty. I know all the girls are waiting. Thank you so much for joining us. Darren, I hope you will stay on, and bye. We'll be in touch with you later. You stay, Darren. Okay? Yeah, thank you. So I can see here that Leela Venkatraman, the eminent dance critic, is present with us in the amongst the attendees. So I really have no idea how this is going to play out. If I hope it's technically
Malika, yeah, Malika, if you can bring Leela ji in the panelist.
okay. So Leela ji, we really thank you for joining us today as well, and for being with us for the entire duration. And I wonder if you have any thoughts that you would like to share with us, and any questions you may want to ask any of the panelists. Oh, I see Ananya still. Why don't you just tell the dancers you'll be back half little late? So
My
I don't know.
computer is held up. That's why I can't go.
Oh, you have to carry your computer as well. No way. Then you just stay. Make a phone call and tell them that you'll come late. They can begin the rehearsals. Okay, have we got Leela Venkatraman on the panelists? Malika?
I think she has left Arshaji. Utpalji is there, and I can't
Okay,
find
she may
Leela ji
have
here.
left just now. She was here till just now. Chalo. Anyway, you know, I think I need to have no. Let's have better trial and for this next time. Oh, she is here. Says
She is
somebody.
here. I can see Leela ji's name.
Yeah, even I thought I saw.
Yeah.
Akka, no, now I don't see it. I think she's panicked because maybe we didn't warn her enough or something like that. Maybe we sprung a surprise. So I think in the interest of carrying this within some decent level, I know we can carry on talking. Honest to God, tomorrow was supposed to be the long day. But this one has been such a satisfying day also in conversation. So much food for thought. Really grateful to all.
Arshaji, Leela ji is there. Leela ji, can you unmute yourself?
Akka? Okay, I think I've done something wrong again, maybe. No?
No, she's there, but maybe she's not able
Okay.
to
I
unmute.
think we should speak to her tomorrow or for tomorrow if we are going to do this. I hope she can join us tomorrow. I apologize to you, Leelaka. I'll speak to you after this to apologize personally. But ladies and gentlemen, the lovely panelists, I've had the most exciting evening with you all. Most touching, most evocative, most kick-ass. I loved the conversation. Thank you so much. I look forward to new work coming. Some has already been announced. Some intentions have been announced, Beanish. And you must understand, I actually have a very selfish reason. I'm sort of simultaneously curating and making my life easier for next year's Chakshu or Dance Lens or whatever it is that one has to go. You all are the ones I'm coming right back to. So thank you very much for joining us today. We come alive again at 7 o'clock tomorrow. And we have a very interesting list lineup for tomorrow as well. Please join us at 7 for the films from 7 till about 8:20. Tomorrow is a longish session. And the conversation, which I hope will still remain within this time, which is about an hour, so that we'll wind up at around the same time. Do join us tomorrow. All the panelists today, tomorrow you join on your attendee list. Tomorrow the panelists are different, okay? So thank you so much. Deeply grateful, touched by all that you have said and done. And
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye
Thank
bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Archie.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.